Security over a cup of tea with Proface. I am Lakshmi Das, co-founder, CEO, and product evangelist at Proface, and I would like to invite you all to this show. Today, we have a special guest with us. Now, let me introduce Mr. Prakash Kumar Ranjan. Prakash is the Chief Security Information Security Officer at India Bulls Housing Finance. Prior to India Bulls Housing Finance, he has worked with Airtel Payment Bank, Canara Bank, and IDBI Bank in information security and risk management areas. Prakash is a bachelor's in engineering for computer science and engineering, and he also holds postgraduate diploma in banking and finance. He has also multiple cybersecurity certifications, which also includes CISA, CISM, CDPSC, and CPISI. So I think that's a pretty a good list of certifications on his credits. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. Prakash. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Ashmi. Thanks for inviting me for a discussion over a cup of tea virtually.
Yes, thank you. So it's indeed a pleasure to host you. So to get started, if you could just tell us, how your journey has been over the security industry or over throughout these years, it would be great for the viewers.
Sure. So basically, I started my security journey from the day of IDBI Bank. So my job role at IDBI Bank was to set up the in-house security operations center, which was basically a mandate that time from the Reserve Bank of India, the regulator for the banks. So I was managing the security operations center operations as well as the new integrations and application management. Since I was reporting to then security head, the CISO, so I was also looking after the risk assessment areas, ISO 27001 certifications. So it was a great learning for me to kick off, the security paradigm from the large setup of the banks. Then I joined Canara Bank again. That time the mandate was to set up in-house SOC, and I was looking after the risk management and SOC operations and SOC implementation. Post that, I joined Airtel Payment Bank, where I was heading the information systems audit. Now here, the challenge was that I, being into the second line of defense, which is security, now I was into the third line of defense, where my job role was to find the gaps for the first line of defense and second line of defense, that is IT and InfoSec. So that was quite interesting for me because I had spent my career in first line and second line. So I was a bit familiar with the challenges as well that the InfoSec team or the IT team faces. So not like traditional or a peculiar auditor who just writes the observations with some fancy recommendations. I knew that the recommendation has to be very crisp and which can be followed. If we say something which is not at all practical, just writing an audit observation will not make organization strong or resilient. So that was a part of my journey where again I switched back to the CISO role at Navi General Insurance from Airtel Payment Bank, and I was also heading the risk management department. So I was his chief risk officer. So there I learned the business as well, because the market risk, credit risk, and treasury was also looked upon by my team, and operational risk. Despite information security risk, the key areas which I learned was operational risk. How this information security will land into the operational risk, and then how it impacts the business, because business continuity was also part of that. So this was a quite good learning, and now I am the CISO for India Bulls Housing Finance and managing the complete information security domain.
Okay, great. Yeah. So as you said, it's all about having that practical aspect, how well we can implement, the security policies in the organization. It's not just about, just becoming compliant, right? Yeah. So I chose your passion towards security and how well, things could be managed in this space. So with that, maybe we can get started with the questions that we have in store for you. So as we are all aware, like now the world is like moving on to the fast-paced era, and now with the 5Gs and 6Gs getting launched, it's like the network, acceleration is happening in a very fast pace. So what symphony of security measure should organization orchestrate for a well-protected digital landscape for high-speed, connectivity? So now everything is becoming, really fast and uh, furious kind of thing. So what do you think?
Yeah. So see, as 5G is scaling out, it is going to add more connectivity and capacity to the network. And it will also allow for greater simultaneous interactions, and at more data with higher speeds flowing to the edge. We remember we were using 2G and then we were happy. But now with even with 3G and 4G, we are not happy because what we have realized is that speed matters a lot. If we get a buffering in a YouTube video, we get impatience. So speed is the new requirement of the Gen Zs and the new millennials. And in addition to the reduced speed and capacity issue, the processing of legacy encryption can slow down the network. Because if we are increasing the 5G to 6G or 4G to 5G and 6G, and if you are using the legacy encryption, it will slow down the network because it will increase the latency and the jitter. Latency budgets can be 1 millisecond or less, but poor performing legacy encryption solutions will chew up the large portion of the 5G network. So increased latency and jitter will have a havoc on the real-time applications. And it will also impact the poor user experience. Suppose you are into the remote surgery and there is a lag or a latency, it will impact a lot to the patient. It can cause to the death of the patient also, because now it is all automated and real-time data flow is the essence. So to deliver the promise of 5G and the applications that will advance the world, the network needs high capacity and the low latency. Capacity and latency is our two coins of the same two sides of the coin. So capacity has to has with low latency. Otherwise, even if you have a high capacity and the latency is high, it is going to impact the end user. So they might not feel that you are on 5G, they will still feel that you are in 2G. And this is only possible if we have the efficient bandwidth utilization and the ability to process the data with minimum latency. Latency will be there, but with a minimum latency, we can increase the customer experience. So the bottom line is that the old security solutions like IPsec, MACsec, VPN is not going to no longer meet this requirement of security and the performance. So for 5G, we need to have high speed with low latency. So we need to have a high speed encryption as well. Like if you remember, there was a news or a paper which was launched by the Thales. So Thales has come up with like high speed encryption, like that multiple security service provider has come up with high speed encryption. So what is this high speed encryption? They are equipped with transport independent mode, that is TIM, a new approach that allows encryption over any network, be it layer 2, 3, or 4. And it allows for the easy movement between layers, and it meets the 5G requirement for quantum ready security with low jitter and low latency. So we need to enhance the customer experience, and we have to use the latest encryption methodology also that will help us in reaching the objective of going to 5G.
Yes, so I kind of truly agree with that. So the key thing or the underlying thing is about meeting the customer expectations, so that the speed is the essential factor. So we cannot go back to the Stone Age wherein everything was in 2Gs and 5Gs and all of that. So yeah, so it's all about catering and also maintaining. When we progress with the speed, the security aspects also should be maintained intact, right? Great. So with that, maybe we can move on to the next question for the day, which would be, beyond technology, the human factor remains critical, right? So how do you emphasize and cultivate a cybersecurity conscious organizational culture from the top down?
See, we always talk about the technology, but if you go back to the principle, it says people, process, and technology. It has to work hand in hand. Otherwise, if we rely only on one part of this PPT, then it is not going to serve the purpose. Technology has to has hand in hand with the people and the process. If you have the good technology, but there is no process defined, then your employees is going to use the arbitrary process, and then despite leave the audit part, even the implementation will go on toss. So people, process, and technology. Now we will talk about the people part. We always say that human is the weakest link, because how much security you enforce, a small phishing email can cause a lot to the organization. So how this, a people part has to be taken care. Traditionally, what was the methodology was that, you call the employees during the induction and give them some gyan on, cybersecurity. But then, what over the ages or the years, what we have realized is that, people from IT background might even, consider whatever you're talking during the induction cybersecurity training. But suppose you are in a bank and the people are coming from sales and the collection, they are not worried about this unless you give them the real-time examples, how it is going to impact them as well. Just, if you talk about the technology implemented in the organization is not going to solve the purpose. So what, recently in 2-3 years, what I have followed is that, frequent sending of emails on recent cybersecurity, be it incident or some awareness thing has to be done. We know that, if we send 10 emails, 9 may not be read by the employees also. They will just open security and then they will just close it. We are okay with that because, we know that 100%, training cannot be done. So what we do is that, even if we are sending 10 emails, so one is read by them and one they follow meticulously, can create a culture of, security awareness. So what we do is that, we send regular emailers on cybersecurity, different aspects. Like last month was cybersecurity awareness month, October being celebrated as that month. And, if you send them gyan on email, with a large email, 1-pager, 2-pager, nobody is going to read. What is that? You use a pictorial method. You use just a small snippet and it should, represent your thoughts. So that, just they will open the window in the, mobile or in their laptop and they don't have to scroll down. Because if they have to scroll down to read the contents, you will say that the drop rate will increase because, people are less, interested in reading the content of the large emails, especially when there it is on the awareness part. Unless there is a, carrot and a stick, if there is something, then otherwise it is very difficult. Second thing is that, whatever the awareness you give, you have to test the, effectiveness of the control. So what we do is that we conduct a regular quiz. We ask the questions which we have given as part of the awareness. And what it helps us, it also gives that, basically a ranking that where do we stand on the training part, where our training is being delivered effectively and whether it is being received by the recipient properly or not. So suppose out of 10 questions, most people are giving only 5 questions answer correctly. It shows that our training lacks something. Either we have to increase the frequency of the training or there is some gap, so we can fix that. So that is done. Then third is that, what we do is, we frequently changes the screensaver wallpaper with some security, initiatives. And any security initiatives that is taken in the organization is also reflected to all the employees through a small emailers, just 5 lines, 6 lines, or typically in a pictorial method, what is implemented and how it is going to help them. Also, we not only create security awareness for organization perspective, we also send an awareness emailers, if they have been impacted, their relatives have been impacted, how they can lodge a complaint to the cyber crime cell. The toll-free numbers are published, their email address, their website of the government is also populated to the end users, so that, despite the organization impact, if it is happening to them on personal grounds or their relatives are impacted, they know at least what to do. Because the problem is that, the delay causes a havoc. If money has been siphoned from your account and you don't report to the bank, on priority, people, the fraudsters will siphon the money from that bank to other bank, and then there will be a ping pong and it will go to some mule account and then there is no chance of recovery. So if the customer is alert or the user is alert, if we, cause the bank and then account is frozen, at least that amount can be, retrieved from that bank, and the employee or their relatives will not be impacted by the frauds. Otherwise, people lacks that, thing. They don't know how to report. despite bank creating a lot of awareness, RBI creating a lot of awareness, but it has not reached to a mass scale, because every day we have to teach them, because there is a new level of fraud coming up every day. So we need to inculcate that culture, where they are at least aware of, because they are using digital methods. Everyone has wallets, everyone does UPI, everyone does through mobile banking. But what are the security controls that should be in place for a secure banking should be known to them, even though they are not from the bank background, they are not from, because they are using that product. If they are using that product, they should be aware of the risk also. If you are using social media, you should know the awareness, what is the risk associated with that. You post every day new pictures and people are misusing that pictures. So you should know what are the loopholes, what are the risks, what are the limitations. Then people has to take a judgmental call, the risk and their experience, or the comfort what they want. So that is how we inculcate the culture of cybersecurity awareness.
Yes, so definitely. So it's all about the three pillars: people, process, and technology, and how humans should not be the weakest link in that in the chain, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I completely do agree with what you said. Like even the common man, they should be aware, or they should also be educated upon how you should have that cybersecurity tactics incorporated into their daily lives. The basic awareness about where their data is going, what they're posting on the social media, and when they're doing banking transactions, how secure they should be. Like we always get messages saying that we should never share our OTPs with anybody, or we should not click on any links, and also never receive calls that they say it might be some fraudster call from the bank, right? All those things. Yeah. So definitely, so that is really an important fact that everybody should analyze and incorporate into their daily lives. Okay, so with that said, now we can move on to the next. It's about handling ransom negotiations, right? So handling ransom negotiations is a significant ethical and tactical dilemma, right? So can you share your approach to handling such crises for organizations? So when they're posed by these kind of threats, so how do you think organizations should respond?
So frankly, I have not gone through such, negotiations so far, and I don't want to go through that negotiations by the God's grace. But the thing is that, when you're doing a ransom negotiation, we have gone through multiple white papers, and the even attended multiple conferences done by, DSCI and the Ministry METI and all. Even if you negotiate with the fraudsters for on the ransom, there is no guarantee that post negotiation also, like if they have asked for 100 USD, you paid 50 by negotiating. There is no guarantee that after paying 50, they will give your data back to you. They might again ask another ransom. They might even after getting the ransom also may upload your data. So there is no guarantee. So how do you ensure that you don't reach to the stage where you have to negotiate on the ransom? So we have to go to the old school methodology, like principle of backup 3-2-1 principle. See, we all know that everybody is hacked, or is already hacked, or will be hacked. It's a harsh reality. But then how much you are prepared yourself that you can mitigate that risk plays a vital role. For ransomware, just a small phishing email can initiate the ransomware, or people sending a link over the email, and then you click on the link and then screwed. So first of all, you should know what is your crown jewels, how you have separated, the principle of least privilege that we were talking in 2010, 12, like principle of least privileges, multi-factor authentication, all these basic things is still required. Even though if you have a very high technology, you have state of the art security solutions in place, but then these basics has to be adhered. Like we were taught, only the name has changed over the time. Like we used to say that hardening has to be done for the servers before it is moved to the production. Now we talk about the CSPM. What is that? It's a hardening only. See, only the thing is that same thing is reproduced with a new name, with a fancy name, zero trust, and all that things. But the principle remains the same. The backend underlying principle remains the same. So for ransomware protection, three things has to be met very effectively. First thing is that the entry level. We know that ransomware can enter only through four channels. One is email, another is USB. Third is accessing bad websites. So these are the major areas through which the ransomware or any malware will enter your network. So how do you protect that? Second is, even if it has reached your system, suppose my system or your system gets compromised, how you're restricting that from entering to your server farm? How do you have the virtual LAN concept, that zero trust principle? Second is, how can you stop from getting the privileged access? Because the problem is that after a malware enters your system, it tries to gain a privilege escalations to execute commands and all. So how do you restrict that? How do you enforce your policy through AD if you are in AD, if you are on a work group, whatever be here? So how do you restrict that? And third thing is minimum time to respond and detect. So that is called MTDD, mean time to detect and mean time to response. So basically, I know that many cyber incidents happening every day. You will get somebody is trying to do IP scan, somebody is doing port scan, somebody is running something on your you will get more than 100 incidents on your SOC. But how do you prioritize that? Second, even after prioritizing, how do you react to that? Now, if it is left to an L1 to react, and then you have not done the automation part. Suppose a blacklisted IP is doing some activity on your website, then what do you want to do? You have to block it. So if you have left to the L1 and then he will take his due time to do that, then you are gone. So you have to decrease the time to detect and increase the time to respond. You have to faster respond to that. And then in ransomware, typically the thing is that the data gets encrypted. Now the basic things has to be done. How do you ensure that your backup is not encrypted? How do you ensure that your backup remains in multiple areas, and then there is no connectivity through which otherwise, if the backup is done on DC and the DR is near real-time replication, then typically if DC gets compromised, your DR will get compromised. But how do you retain that one copy is very important, whether you are keeping in air gapped environment, what we say now. And how do you ensure that whatever backup you have done, you can do the restoration from that? Because typically backup is done every day, but nobody touches the restoration activity. So backup to have, we will say that we have backup, but then we have never tested the restoration. So we don't know at the time of crisis whether you will be able to restore also from that backup or not. So it's a good copy or not, we don't know. So we need to do a drill for that. You should ensure that tabletop exercise is conducted to see that how do you employees or your team reacts to such incidents. So basically, we should be prepared for that. And I don't think paying ransom solves your problem, because there is no guarantee that after 1 month, after one day, they will come back to you and say that I have the copy again. I want 200 USD, 300 USD, whatever be the amount in bitcoins and all. So mentally, we should be prepared to protect also. Then defending that. Now, even if you see that many cybersecurity solutions company claim that you have a warranty. I know multiple EDR solution providers say that we have a warranty of 1 million USD, but nobody knows in case of that incident whether they will be having some asterisk mark in that policy, which will save themselves from paying any single rupee, because nobody tested that and nobody wants to test that also.
Yeah. So yes, so it's always that condition supply scenario
Yeah.
coming into picture, right?
Typically like an insurance where the condition applies is very high.
Yes. So cybersecurity is always a cat and mouse game. I mean, we nobody can guarantee 100% foolproof system, right? Because every time technology is advancing, even the cyber criminals are moving at a really fast pace, wherein they're deploying new methodologies to get into your system, right? And yeah, so it's all about how well prepared we are to tackle these kind of situations, because as you said, there are only two categories: either you are hacked or you are about to be hacked, right? So it's all about how well prepared we are, and with all the backups, and whether we have tested the recovery process and everything, that really counts at the end of the day. Yes, so it's all about responding to that particular situation diligently. I mean, without directly jumping into the situation and paying the ransomware, because there's no guarantee that everything will be restored as early, right? Yes.
Correct.
So that was a very interesting perspective that you gave, and I'm sure it was really very insightful for the viewers as well. So maybe with that, we could go on to the next discussion point. So as cities become more connected and smart, what unique cybersecurity challenges and solutions do you foresee, especially in safeguarding the critical infrastructure? So we've had many cases where there have been attacks against the critical infrastructure of our country and all of that, right? So how do you think we should be prepared for that?
So now it's the ages of smart cities. So smart cities will create safer, more efficient, and more resilient communities through technological innovations and through data-driven decision making. But this also introduce a lot of potential vulnerabilities, and it will, if get exploited, it may impact your national security, your economic security, your public health and safety. So we have to protect these critical infrastructure operations as well. Now, these are the soft targets for the criminals nowadays, and it raises concern to exploit vulnerable systems to steal critical information, data which is relying on that critical infrastructure. So how do you protect that? Again, what I say is that we have to go to the basics. So first of all, when we are planning, it has to include a security angle. Secure planning and design is the essence. How do you provide the connectivity? Normally security is involved at the time of sign off. When the project is already done, implemented, and then you'll come to us or any security team for a sign off. But if security team is involved from the planning stage and designing stage, they can guide you very much, in a better way to, and they will recommend some, strategic requirements which will enhance the security posture. So secure planning and design from the design perspective is required. Apply the principle of least privilege. We have been listening this from decades, because what happens typically in smart city projects, it is outsourced to a vendor, and then vendor outsources to sub vendor. Now we don't know, for employees we do conduct background verification and all, but now we don't know whether the end user who is managing the operations of the critical infrastructure at the smart city level, whether he does not have a malign activity, or he does not have a malicious intentions, or has any background of such. So we have to apply the principle of least privilege. If he is an operator, he should not be having rights to do an active admin activities. So their rights should be monitored, and then we have to give them minimum rights as per their job requirements. Second is enforce multi-factor authentications. We have seen cases of from security perspective that shoulder surfing, password sharing and all. So we need to introduce that concept very diligently, that for all the accounts who is managing the smart cities, we have to enforce multi-factor authentication. We have to implement the zero trust architecture. We can't trust anyone. So from the network perspective, typically what we should do is that we have to implement zero trust architecture that requires the authentication and authorization for each new connection with a layer and defense and depth approach. Then we have to reassess the internal architecture to see that what risk is emerging after a periodic time. Or suppose we have implemented a smart city project last year. Now we should assess the architecture, because sometimes the architecture which was designed 1 year back may not have that vulnerability which is exposed now. So we have to do that reassessment every time. And the last piece what I'll say is that supply chain risk. Because in the smart cities, typically we have a lot of supply chain vendors. And we have heard about solar winds and others, how the supply chain has got the damage. So we should know the supply chain. We should have an inventory of all the contractors, which are providing us the hardware, software, even the human resources. And we should be cognizant of the fact that, if you are releasing any product, if it has a exposed vulnerability, we should do the patching. So supply chain risk is also a very important element of that risk management.
Yeah. So, so that is a very nice perspective to what you were saying. Like it's all about, having multi-factor authentication and giving the least privilege and access, only to the necessary folks to the level that it is required, right? Yeah. So, in that way, we could keep our surroundings also secure, from all these kind of attacks. Okay. So with that, maybe we can get to the last question for the day, which would be cybersecurity has become like a boardroom level concern these days, right? So, from your perspective, how do you effectively convey the intricacies of this domain to non technical stakeholders? So, this is one major concern in the industry, right? So,
Uh,
what's your
so
perspective?
yeah, so mostly I have worked in the BFSI domain. My 90% of the career has been into the BFSI, and BFSI has a very strong governance mechanism, especially when it comes to RBI, SEBI, and IRDA. I have worked with all three these regulators. They are very particular about the governance, and in governance, they have introduced that now if you go to the any board which is for BFSI segment, especially in banking, insurance, or a listed company, typically they say that there has to be a director with IT knowledge. Why they say that is, they have understood the importance of IT and technology, because typically in the board, they are more towards business, and it is right also because they are there to run the business. But now technology is not the just you can say cost center, or is just back end job kind of thing. It is a business enabler. So if you have to pedal the high with business, you have to have a strong pillar mechanism of technology underlying with it. So technology comes with a risk. That is why in all the BFSI segment, you will find a different committee of the board, which is called as IT strategy committee of the board, which is mandated by the regulator. There is a role defined for them that they have to discuss on the technology aspects, their future readiness, and the risk associated with that technology. So if you are in banking, if you have a core banking solution, and if you want to upgrade yourself, you have to go back to the board. You have to explain them what is the underneath risk associated with that. And it happens every quarter in the banks. If you go to the banking sector, it happens every quarter. Every quarter you have to apprise the risk of the technology to them. Now earlier VAPT reports used to be just till the senior management. Now the VAPT report goes to the board as well, because now the RBI or IRDA or the SEBI asks whether your board knows this risk or not. So, and to make them understand, you have to calculate the risk in a business fashion. If you have some you can say a risk of a VAPT or application not passed, what impact will it have on the business side? Because they won't understand the TLS, or they should not understand also why they should be for that job. They have hired people like us. So they should, what they know, we have to tell them in that language. They know business, so we have to tell them how it is going to impact the business. If the application goes down, what is the impact to them? If you don't have a DR, what is the impact to them? I don't know, for business continuity. So we have to tell them in terms of business risk. The technology risk should create a business risk for them. Then only they will understand and will invest in that technology. Otherwise they are not going to put attention. If you put some technical jargons in that we should increase the TLS 1.2 to 2.0 or 3.0, they don't know TLS itself. So how you expect them if they will see that it is CISO recommended, they will just approve, but they will not understand that if you want a buy-in or their recommendation, because they are very rich in their business. So we should tell them into the business risk aspects. If the application is not designed for DR readiness, then we should tell them that if the DC goes down, what is the impact they are going to have? What is the RTO and RPO that is going to impact it? And with the RTO, RPO, what is going to impact in terms of their business cost? So, cyber security or the technology risk is discussed now in all the board meetings, irrespective of the nature of the business, whether it's a BFSI, because risk is emerging everywhere, because now everyone wants to go to the digital. We are hearing now digital transformation. We are hearing on digital India. So everything is digital now. Now you won't find a 100 rupee note in my wallet typically, because I have followed taking out from the ATMs. So people like me is okay, but then people like in the tier 2, tier 3 cities now is using UPI. So they are becoming digital savvy. So for them also, if they have like a retailer also in the remote area also, they know they can do the selling only if they have a POS machine. Otherwise, or a QR code. Otherwise, they are not going to do the business, because people not come with the cash and they will go to the shops which has a QR code. It happens with me. If a shopkeeper will ask or insist for a cash, I may not have cash that time. I have to go to some other shops. So the business will get impacted unless you are catching that speed. So it is a risk for everyone, be it from a small shopkeeper. They should be aware of the QR code frauds, how it is happening. We have seen multiple videos where people are just having some apps which just creates a name of the shopkeeper and the amount, and it shows as that it amount is paid, but it is not reached to them. So how to protect themselves? Like everybody has a Paytm soundbox or any wallet soundbox, because it tells that amount has received to them, even though they don't understand technology. But they know that 60 rupees they wanted from the customer and 60 rupees has come. Just mere showing the payment screen will not help, because now they don't trust us. They also now follow the principle of zero trust. This is also a zero trust for them.
Yeah,
So,
so that's a very interesting point that you brought out. So everything is zero trust nowadays, even from the small local vendors, to even the more sophisticated security practitioners, right? So it's all about being aware about all the security practices and all of that, so that we always keep ourselves upfront in terms of technology. So technology is anyways always a business enabler. So even the management team should have a fair understanding about what's really going on in terms of technology, and how bringing security into picture is actually going to take their business to the next level, right? Yes, so with that, we do come to the end of another interesting session of security over a cup of tea. So, would you want to tell the viewers? Anyways, we have already crossed the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but awareness is not limited to a particular month. We should always, as you said, keep spreading the awareness around. So, if you would want to give some piece of advice to our viewers, what would that be?
So in terms of awareness, I'll say that people should read SMS which is being delivered from TRI, which is delivered from RBI. They should read basic things. They should not have mind backup in the mind that they know everything. They need to know that they have to learn everything, and they have to learn every day. So people has to go out of that mindset that I am, if I am a graduate, if I'm an engineer, I know everything about the technology and the rest. They should not be in that state of mind. Otherwise, today or tomorrow they will be a person who will be going to the banks or the cyber police filing a complaint. We should be learning every day, and we should be that mindset should be that we should learn from anyone. It's not that if I'm a graduate and if a shopkeeper is telling me something about what they face as a security problem, you should just shy away from that and say, it's your problem. Problem revolves. We don't know when this problem will hit you. We read in news every day that somebody got feast, somebody got deceived, and they shared the OTP. You will laugh on that and say it's a mere fool. But sometimes it happens that you receive a call, and the caller will so much be uh, friendly to you, or threatening to you, that you will yourself shares the OTP. We have seen such cases. We have seen cases in the newspaper that a bank executive director is fall of the victim of the wishing. Now you will say that how can a bank executive director get? But sometimes it's a state of mind. You are not in a good state of mind at that time. If you receive a call, you might not apply your mind that time, and you might share the information which you are not supposed to share. So typically we should be very attentive. We should not share anything which is asked. We should think about it first, whether this information is required to be shared or not, even if you're sharing with bank or anyone. people tend to share the information. They say they will already have this information, but you should always cross check why this is asked. If something is asked, if your Aadhaar copy is asked by any hotel or something, you should insist why you are asking that. Can I give you some alternatives? Or any question, you should cross question them instead of just whatever is asked, you are sharing that.
Definitely. So that's a right to information that everybody should have. So as you said, we should always keep us updated and learning, especially in terms of security, is a never-ending process, right? You have to keep yourself updated because the threat landscape is evolving day by day, right? So with that said, so wishing you continued success in all your endeavors, sir. So and with that, it's me, Lakshmi, your host for the day, signing off. Thank you and have a great day. So I would finally say that the threat landscape will keep increasing and evolving day by day, but let nothing of that affect your peace of mind. Stay positive and leave the rest to us. So don't forget to keep smiling because that's the curve that sets everything upright, not just for you, but also for the people around you. So spread the positivity around. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.